Well, hey there, you're on the internet, I have some free time, and welcome to the Triple N Network, where all you newbie nib nerds can find all the news you'll need. Let's look at an ink today, shall we? Now, today's ink is by Herbin, or Herbin, and when you get it in a bottle, generally the bottles are like this, and when you get it in cartridges, they come in these little tins, and you get 6 little cartridges in there. And the pen I used was, it's called a pen and ink sketch with a broad nib, which my camera will not show you because it's being a diva today. And although this is a broad nib, generally it doesn't put down a great deal of ink, so yeah, it's pretty good for testing because it'll give me a wide enough line, but it won't like flood the paper. Now let's check out the chromatography. Now here's how you're supposed to do chromatography, so of course let's look at that first. As you can see, most of it sort of remained and then a little bit went up to the top, and then there's this weird cream color up at the top, which I don't know what that's about, but yeah. And here, lately I've been letting it dry, which is not how you're supposed to do it, but I have too much free time. As you can see, what remains at the bottom is even darker and even more clear. This weird cream color is even more pronounced. But, yep. Thought I'd compare it to some other blues. Because today's ink, which I realize I haven't said yet, is Eclat de Saphir. And I just totally gave that an Italian thing. But anyways, so here it is up here. And then under that is Rhodia und Klingas Salix, which is an iron gall, and then Herbin's Lavin de Perfuming Cresse de Bleu, and Diamond's Indigo, Noodler's Bad Belted Kingfisher, and Pilot's Namiki Blue. Now the reason why I chose these inks is because they all sort of have a woolly, almost like a foggy kind of texture to them. They all have that that woolly effect, which is something that Eclat de Saphir definitely has. So now, I'm sure everyone's seen this. This is the Herbin's Cresse de Fumée, and so it's their little swabs, and this is Eclat de Saphir, which you can see is kind of their like standard blue. There's Bleu Nuit, which is supposed to be their like midnight blue, and then there's Bleu Provence, which is sort of their turquoisey, and then they have Vert Rosada, which is sort of like a aqua-ish, and Diablo Malt, which is so light. But yeah, so this is sort of their standard blue. And caveat, I don't like it. I never have liked it, but it's very popular, so I thought I'd test it. So my opinions are mixed in here. If you don't care about my opinions and you only care about the text, cool, we're good. 11 seconds to dry, which is really not too bad considering this is Clairefontaine, which is pretty dense paper, and a broad nib. As you can see, there is some shading, but as you can probably also see, it is very thin. It is a very thin and watery ink. Now, if there was ever an upside to that, it's that you get a good degree of shading. But, yeah, it makes the ink look quite weak. But, as I say, first things first, there's no bleed, there's no feather, there's no spread, there's no sheen, and there's no echo. I did feel that it was slightly wet. It's maybe 7 out of 10. And as we saw in the chromatography, there's actually a good bit of water resistance, especially on the sliding scale of Herbin, which is not really known for its water resistance. That's not too bad. A lot of it did wash away, but enough remains so that if you absolutely had to recover it, you could. Next is Rhodia, where it was essentially the same all over again. Still 11 seconds to dry. Still no bleed, feather, spread, or sheen, or echo. Flow is still 7 out of 10, but it's still quite watery. Very thin looking. I mean, even in the darkest areas, you can still see the dots from the dot pad. But again, that does give it a decent degree of shading. And again, the water test, really not too bad. For Herbin ink, it certainly held up. Next is Tomoe River Paper, where it looked very, very thin, which I think is partly due to how this paper works. Just the way it works, the effect it has on ink, how it makes it pool and dry and whatever. So it's really thin looking, but 12 seconds to dry. Again, you do get some shading, but no bleed, no feather, no spread. And for a Tomoe River and for a Herbin ink, that's really not too bad. It is 90% gone, except for the dots. I feel like the dots are probably only 60% gone, but yeah. But because it's sort of thin and watery, it doesn't have a significant degree of echo, so there's that. Yeah, so 20-pound copier paper. And here I sort of want to demonstrate just how much it spread, like the line width really expanded. 4 seconds to dry. Yeah, it's really watery looking on here, but yeah, there's bleed and there's feathering and there's spread. And granted, this is a broad nib, but it's a fairly dry writing one. And fantastic water test. As you can see, the paper reacted very badly. You can see where it actually like started to wrinkle in on itself, but fairly clear, fairly dark, not too bad. Next is Mead Notebook Paper, where it looks really washed out, but 4 seconds to dry. Surprisingly little bleed. There is some, but it's patchy, which makes me think it's probably largely due to the poor quality control. Yeah, I said there's no real shading, but there kind of is. It's just, no bleed, or sorry, no feather, no spread. Decent water resistance, really not too bad. And here's the Moleskin paper, but this Moleskin paper seems to be like a freak of nature, so everything with a grain of salt here. Decent shading. 10 seconds to dry, which seems a little bit long. It's behaving like a good paper though, so no bleed, feather spread, no sheen. Echo is very minimum. In fact, I'd say it's essentially non-existent. But it is just so thin and watery looking. And again, for a Herbin ink, that's a decent water test. A decent amount remained, even though a good deal washed away. So yeah, there you go. There's Herbin's Eclat de Saphir. It is a decent ink. Has good flow, decent water resistance. But it's very watery. It's very watery, and doesn't behave super well on cheap papers, so keep that in mind. And it is probably one of the most thoroughly uninteresting colors I've ever seen, and I love blue ink. And anyways, for your consideration from the Triple N Network, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to the channel. And thanks for watching. Bye.